and welcome back to another episode of Patriots of the American Republic. Guys, we've got another episode ready for you, and what we want to touch in here is the lies from the midterms. The media, the leftist media, has been working overtime to try and lie to us so that you guys can vote for their guy, right? So you can vote for their Democrats, keep them in power. A lot of the polls, and I don't like to focus on polls because we saw how bad the polls were back in 2016, right? So I don't want to focus in too much on the polling, but just about every poll shows that a red wave is coming. The polls showed that in the previous midterm, so again, I don't want to bank that. But we need to show up, we need to vote so that we can go ahead and get that red wave to come. We need to take back the House. We need to take back the Senate. And the leftist media is doing everything that they can to try and gaslight you and lie to you in your face, even though we have the evidence. I mean, listen, I was telling my kids yesterday, this isn't like, back in the 90s, prior to the internet existing, and when these politicians spoke, you had to take them at their word or go off of memory or actually rely on a newspaper to dig up that evidence if there was any contradictions. We have the internet now, guys. And unless hopefully, the censorship is not bad to the point where you can't find it, which in some cases it can be. But we do have the internet where we can go back and validate some of the claims that these people are talking about. Look, we talked about it in a previous episode or segment where, Joe Biden claimed that he brought down the gas from $5 from when he took office. No, it was not $5 when you took office. It was $5 just a couple of months ago. So yeah, it's down from the $5 that you had it high at, but it's higher than when you first took office. So we can go back and we can see that. We can go on the internet. We can go on official web pages to take a look at that. So what else are these folks lying to us about? We touched on it in our previous segment. We've touched on it in previous episodes. The defund the police movement. We've had, since 2020, the most absurd policy or campaign slogan or movement or however you want to define it in defunding the police. It's just common sense. Less police, more crime. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just that simple. You embolden criminals when you don't prosecute them, when you don't arrest them, when you don't have the ability to arrest them, when you don't have the proper resources to take care of those things, crime is going to go up, and it's exactly what's happening right now. And as we mentioned in one of our previous segments, crime is one of those high focus things that the American people are focused in on, that they want resolved. They want to feel safe when they go outside of their house. Heck, they want to feel safe inside their house, right? So they want to feel safe in their neighborhood. Crime is up across the country, and they know it. But here's the interesting part. I have seen so far several of these Democratic candidates backtracking on their position of defund the police. Let's take a look.
The Biden administration is desperately trying to spin a new narrative after the defund the police move blew up in the Democrats' faces. Big surprise there. The White House is actually trying to claim now it's the Republicans who support defunding the police. But if only we had a flashback montage of numerous Democrats expressing their explicit desire to cut money from the cops. Oh, we do.
Yes, I support the defund movement because this is about the investment in our communities, which have historically been divested.
Not only do we need to defund, but we need to dismantle and start anew.
Many affluent suburbs have essentially already begun pursuing a defunding of the police in that they fund schools, they fund housing.
We can't rely upon the police to provide public safety.
And better yet, what if we had an old tape of the current vice president lending her support back when she was a senator?
We've got to re-examine what we're doing with American taxpayer dollars and ask the question, are we getting the right return on our investment? Are we actually creating healthy and safe communities? And that's a legitimate conversation, and it requires a really critical evaluation. I applaud Eric Garcetti for doing what he's done.
Whoops. The White House trying to shift blame because crime is out of control in cities across the nation. Just look at the increases now versus the same time last year. And listen to the Oakland, California police chief on what these liberal policies have done.
We see clearly that crime is out of control in the city of Oakland, and our response was for less police resources. That additional $17 million that was reduced from the police department's budget will have an impact. We already have a tough time responding to the high number of calls that we get. This will make it tougher, having less officers in the field.
It's terrible.
So in that video, we can see that they did support the defund the police movement. And even though they're trying to backtrack and blame, actually they're trying to blame the Republicans for the defund the police movement, which is absolutely insane and absurd. And I get it. They're trying to do that because we're talking about defunding the FBI, right? But it's for two different reasons, right? First of all, not all of us are on the defund the FBI wagon. And why? Because they are, in essence, part of law enforcement, right? But that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about because we're not talking about defunding them and dismantling them, right? What we want is the corruption, the apparent corruption that's going on in the FBI, the two-tier justice system that they're doing, where they're looking into Republicans and conservatives, and they seem to turn the cheek when it comes to Democrats. Hunter Biden's a great example. They've had the laptop 2 years now, and what are they doing with it? You're going to tell me you don't have enough information to go ahead and arrest the guy? I mean, he lied on a federal form for a firearm. What other evidence do you need? You know what I'm saying? So nothing's really been done there. So let's be real. We need to get the bias, and I've mentioned this in previous episodes. We need to get the bias, corrupt FBI officials out of the FBI. And if that can't be done, then we can have discussions, right? If we can't get an honest level, and I'm not talking about Republican favoring FBI, I'm talking about an honest, unbiased, apolitical FBI the way it's supposed to be. If we can do that, that's great. If we can't, then we can have the discussion about dismantling. But these people are talking about defunding police as a whole. They want to defund. You heard Ilhan Omar. She wants to dismantle the police. Who's going to deal with the crime? Oh, social workers. Right, because a social worker is going to put their life on the line while somebody's got a gun shooting up everybody. I mean, it's absurd. It's absurd. And to blame Republicans is even more absurd for that. But let's go ahead and listen to the next video.
There are similar anti-police proposals all over the country, including New York City Council candidates. In that case, 40 or so of them. Hillary Clinton's former spokesperson also calling for police to be defunded. So is Socialist Congresswoman, part of the squad, Congresswoman Tlaib, tweeting, quote, "I just want us to dig deeper that the hashtag defund police movement isn't just brushed aside. The mob, the media, some there, they're pushing for the police to be abolished." News story in The Atlantic reads, quote, "Defund the police. America needs to rethink its priorities for the whole criminal justice system." Maybe they forgot that Donald Trump did criminal justice reform to get rid of disparate sentencing. Rolling Stone publishing a, quote, "practical guide to defunding the police." Cosmo, they wrote, "Defunding the police will actually make us safer." Really? And look at this. In a rare moment of common sense from the media mob, you had a writer over at Vox.com tweeting, quote, "I'm sorry, but this abolish the police seems like a poorly thought out idea that's gotten popular with shocking speed." After widespread rage and condemnation from his far left peers, guess what? He was pressured, groupthink, he was forced to apologize. So clearly in the new radical far left Socialist Democratic Party, it is now officially woke to abolish the police. Today, Byron York, he brought up a really good point in his tweet, writing, quote, "Well, maybe it's time for some enterprising blue state municipality to go bold and eliminate its police force. Let's see what happens." Comrade de Blasio, how about we'll start with you? How about you give up the entire police department in New York, give them, well, 2 weeks paid leave, including, by the way, the armed police officers protecting you and your family every day. And after all, Black Lives Matter, they have already promised they're going to fill the void, that they will patrol the streets, armed, militias, if you want to call it, armed peace officers. Really? The same Black Lives Matter group that frequently is called for violence against the police? Take a look.
Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon. 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 Pigs in a blanket.
Didn't then President Obama meet with some of the radicals in some of these groups? Now, as you're watching tonight, ask yourself this question.
So that video was taken in 2020 when all this was happening, right? And we can clearly see that the movement was from the left, not Republicans, right? And in the previous video, I do want to express how that one was from 2021, and that chart that you saw of the rise in crime was from 2020 to 2021. So it's clearly there is a rise in crime due to directly correlated to this defund the police movement, which was brought forth by the Democrats, not the Republicans. As a matter of fact, again, and we said this in a previous in this previous segment, like 2 segments ago, when the truth is so obvious, when the lie is so blatant, that the leftist media has to say, well, there's really no way to lie about this. They're forced to tell the truth, right? If it's something that's recent that can very easily be checked, it seems like they're pressured to tell the truth, because here we've got the Washington Post telling the truth, fact checking on the defund the police movement. Let's check this out.
Yeah, you know, the Washington Post, you and I talked about this. We broke the news how the Washington Post gave the White House 3 Pinocchios for spreading disinformation, claiming Republicans backed defunding the police. You did a dive into this. You know, the American Rescue Plan, nowhere to...
So there you have it. You know, the Washington Post fact check, if you will, that the Democrats were the ones who were behind the defund the police and not the Republicans. I mean, you'd have to be an idiot to not know that, right? You'd have to not keep up with the political times. You'd have to have not watched any news coverage, right, in 2020 to not know this. So it is what it is. But let's fast forward to today. Democrats are backtracking from that defund the police movement. Why? Because that spike in crime that we just saw. Again, that was 2021. From 2020 comparison. I wish I could find a 2022, but obviously we're still in it to see that comparison, but I'm sure it's higher. All right, lots of reports have shown that it's increased since then, or the trending is increasing even though the year's not over. But let's take a look at some of these political candidates and where they stand regarding the defund the police movement.
Tim Ryan knows defunding the police is ridiculous. He's brought back $467 million to put good cops on the street. I trust Tim Ryan to keep our communities safe.
When I hear people talking about defunding the police, I know they're wrong. Police officers put their lives on the line every day to keep us safe, but it's our job to make sure they have what they need to do it. And that's a job I take personally.
In the Senate, I'll protect Florida from bad ideas, like defunding the police. That's just crazy.
Well,
Val Demings, I think we played it in our previous episode when we had Adam Francisco. Shout out to Adam Francisco. Hope you're doing good, pal. Where we played a piece of her debate with Marco Rubio, and Marco Rubio called her out for both her and her party for supporting defund the police, and she claimed that she's never been for that, as you saw in that ad. Here's the funny thing. I've been following politics for quite some time, more closely in 2015 going forward. I heard so many Democrats for defunding the police. Andrew Cuomo, Bill de Blasio, Hillary Clinton. Well, maybe not Hillary Clinton, but I've heard a number of prominent Democrats, Los Angeles Democrats, Portland, a number of them were for. I never heard one Democrat say, no, this is wrong. Our crime is going to go up. I didn't hear not one single person come out and go against the defund the police movement, is essentially what I'm trying to say. Right? I didn't hear Val Demings coming out and saying, that's crazy. Back then, I didn't hear it. She's saying it now because the polls are showing it. Right? See, here's the part that infuriates me. They're only doing it because the polls show it and because their job is on the line. That's a common sense thing. Every single American wants to feel safe. I don't care what your skin color is. I don't care what your background is. I don't care what your orientation is of any kind. Everybody wants to be safe in the country in their state, in their neighborhood, in their house. No one wants to go to the mall and have to worry about being stabbed, shot, killed, jumped, beaten, or whatever. So the minute, if I was a Democrat in office, even if it cost me my seat, I wouldn't want to have a seat or retain it or obtain it based on a lie. If that's the case, I don't need it. I don't want it. And I would have stood up and said, this does not make sense. How on God's green earth can we defund the police and not expect crime to go up? We're talking about saving people's lives. More lives are going to be lost. More innocent lives are going to be lost if we defund the police. I didn't hear one single Democrat say that. So for these people to come around now and start doing that, they just want your vote. Don't give it to them. Don't give it to them, because they're lying about this. They're going to lie about everything else and anything else. And we already seen that basically all Democrats are basically cookie cut. They believe all in the same things. There's no difference between them. Maybe Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, arguably, but that's about it. One of the reasons why Tulsi Gabbard left the Democratic Party, because by her own words, the Democratic Party has changed. They don't have the same values that they had before, from before. So it's very clear. What else are they lying to you about? Open borders, right? The White House claimed borders secure. They've said it on several occasions. Here it is. Let's check it out.
Thank you, Green. Over the weekend, the Vice President said that the border is secure, but we're on track to close the fiscal year with 2 million encounters, breaking last year's record. In the last month alone, fentanyl seizures are up 200%, and we're on pace to break that record also this year. So how is the border secure?
So we see record seizures of fentanyl at the border, so we're actually catching fentanyl before it enters the country. So that's how we see that.
And there you have it. The border's secure. The press secretary, the White House press secretary, has confirmed that the border's secure. Is it really? Because we're getting constant images of a flood of people coming in through the border. As a matter of fact, the other night, Tucker Carlson showed how 5.5 million illegal immigrants have crossed the border since this administration has taken over, has been in place. Let's take a look at that.
The Biden administration released the latest numbers on border crossings, illegal border crossings, late Friday night. They're hoping nobody would notice, but our Bill Melugin did notice.
DHS released highly anticipated September border numbers late Friday night, past 11 p.m. Eastern, and they are historic. The numbers reveal there were more than 227,000 migrant encounters in September, the highest September in DHS history, and the equivalent of 2 full-capacity University of Michigan football stadiums. Fiscal year 2022 ended with nearly 2.4 million migrant encounters. That's equivalent to the population of Houston, and it's the highest fiscal year ever recorded.
So this country's never seen anything like this. This will change America forever in ways we can't even anticipate. What are Democrats saying about it? Well, they refuse to acknowledge even that it's happening. When Melugin confronted them in Congress about the state of the border, they ran away. Watch.
And ma'am, is the border secure? Do you agree with the administration that the border is secure? We'll let you go. Chairman, one question. In your opinion, is the border secure?
I have to go give a speech. Didn't you hear me?
I heard you.
Okay.
It's a quick question. Is the border secure? Answers about the border few and far between from some Democrats on Capitol Hill, including the Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas. I'm Bill Melugin with Fox News. Do you have a few moments to talk about the border real quick?
I'm sorry, I don't.
I reached out to your office, asked to talk to you last week. They blew us off.
I appreciate it.
It's 900,000 gotaways.
Have a good day. Thank you.
No comment, sir. Only Democrats from the state of Texas, the front line of the border crisis, ended up talking to us, and they expressed concern about the border.
This is unsustainable. It has been unsustainable for years.
We have resources down there, but we clearly need to be doing more.
This is our administration. I'm a Democrat. And, they need to understand they own it now. They own it now, and they have to take the steps to correct this.
So if you're wondering why Republicans are surging in the polls, this is why. The only candidates talking about the border turn out to be Republicans.
We have a catastrophe at the border, and we should not have sanctuary cities as John Fetterman has tried to introduce. The completely porous, open nature of our border, which John Fetterman supports, has created a humanitarian crisis.
Oh, we've seen a massive increase in overdoses. 2021 was the highest number we've ever seen. And we can directly correlate this to the Whitmer-Biden policies of having an open border. We know that drugs are pouring across our border every day.
The surge is still continuing, and it's not just about people coming, it's also about things like illicit drugs that are coming. The sex trafficking, the labor trafficking. This is about working with the Department of Justice to be able to tackle the illicit drugs that are coming in, but we need to stop it at the border.
We've had millions and millions of people pour in across illegally. We've had record numbers of fentanyl come in. We now see it ravaging our communities like never before. I didn't hear people like Charlie expressing outrage about that.
The thing that I worry about with all of this illegal immigration is that if you want to start a relationship with this country, we're all common citizens. We're all in a great big American family. We look after each other. Whether you came 1 generation ago, whether you came 10 generations ago, we're all part of the same family. But your introduction to this country should not be breaking its laws.
So how many people have come into this country illegally during the Biden administration so far in less than 2 years? Well, the Federation for American Immigration Reform, FAIR, has been following this. They've determined that 5.5 million illegal aliens have crossed into the United States since Joe Biden took office. That's more than the population of many countries. That's more than the population of New Zealand or Ireland or Costa Rica. The scale is unimaginable. We will not recover from this. Dan Stein is the president of FAIR. He joins us to walk through the numbers.
There you have it. Unprecedented numbers. 5.5 million reported, right? And kudos to the Democrats that are along the borders for telling the truth and saying that it's unsustainable. They need more resources, etc. And I really like Veronica Escobar there, where she literally said it's unsustainable. It is unsustainable. We should not be having open borders. Illegal immigration, I think we've made our point in several previous episodes, that illegal immigration does not help anybody. There's an increase of crime, which we've seen. Listen, even if 10% of those people crossing are criminals, that's 10% increase of crime, or I shouldn't say that's a 10% increase. That's an automatic increase of crime. We've got it. We've got it on record that, a lot of these folks that come over are obviously part of the cartel, drug dealers, human traffickers, sexual offenders, right? If the left is always talking about saving every single life, and I totally agree with that. Okay, so why doesn't it apply here? Because these people are going to commit crimes against actual victims, right? So why doesn't it apply there? We cannot have an open border. We cannot let people in willy-nilly. It absolutely does exhaust our resources, right? More border agents, more equipment, more judges, more lawyers, more facilities, more transportation, more food, more cost, etc. We cannot. It's not right. It's not right that we have fellow Americans, and by no means is this a racial matter, because a lot of people on the left, they're going to say, well, those are Hispanics, and has nothing to do. Listen, we have American Hispanics, okay? People who are actual from a Hispanic background that are actually either born in America, so they're American citizens, or they came here legally, which are also American citizens, that are struggling right now. So if we're going to do the race card, let's do an apples to apples, right? You're going to tell me that there aren't any Hispanic Americans that are suffering right now, struggling? It's not right and it's not fair. Everybody has to follow the law. I have to follow the damn law. Everybody should have to follow the darn law. Then it promotes more illegal immigration. The more people we let in, 5.5 million, the more people we let in, the more people want to take the venture, want to take the risk and come, right? We're only halfway through. We're not even halfway through. We're almost halfway through this administration. And we've got 5.5 million so far. How much more? It needs to stop. It needs to stop, and it needs to stop now. But these people, again, they don't care. They don't care. All they care about is your vote. All they care about is the power. All they care about is the money. We know this and we could see this, and I think there's no better illustration than the debates that took place between John Fetterman and Dr. Oz from Pennsylvania. It's a gubernatorial race. Why am I showing this one more so than anything else? Why? Because I think this is a good illustration of how power hungry these people are. They don't care who they put into office. We can say that about Joe Biden. And I mentioned it, how Joe Biden was the last candidate to come in. And why? Because he was the only one by name that had recognizability that they felt they could use. Every other Democrat that was running in 2020 was like not even on the radar, other than Bernie Sanders. And the Democratic Party, we talked about this before, they didn't want Bernie Sanders. They did everything they could to stop Bernie Sanders, and they did, right? They didn't want a socialist, right? So they put him into office. They put Joe Biden into office, a guy who's incoherent, who's senile, who's falling all over the place, who cannot finish sentences, who shakes the air. Maybe there's a ghost next to him that I can't see. He shakes his hand every once in a while, right? He's not mentally there many times. So here we've got a similar case with John Fetterman, who he just had a stroke a couple of months ago, like 5 months ago or something like that. And he's been cleared by his doctor that he can absolutely serve for a seat in the Senate. Listen, if you watch the debate, it was a train wreck. But don't take my word for it. Let's go ahead and check it out.
But last night, in the Pennsylvania Senate debate, John Fetterman knocked himself out the second he opened his mouth.
Hi, good night, everybody. I'm running to serve Pennsylvania.
It only got worse from there. Fetterman's entire campaign's based on saying Dr. Oz is a carpetbagger who owns a lot of homes. And he's gotten some traction on that. But at the debate, you have to show off your policy chops. And Fetterman couldn't even spew slogans.
No, here's what I think we have to fight about inflation here right now. That's what we need to fight about, inflation. We all have to make sure that everyone that works is able to, that's the most American bargain, that if you work full time, you should be able to live in dignity as well, true. You know, but going to those kind of vocational schools, able to create a career to Wayne, reach a lot of high salary, and again, supporting to reduce those costs are critical too.
So on the issue that matters most to Pennsylvania voters, the economy, John couldn't cut it. Fetterman had months to prepare for this debate, months. He knew Oz was going to hit him for living off of his parents and not paying taxes, but he couldn't defend himself.
He has specifically said you have not paid your taxes and that you want to raise taxes on Americans. How do you respond?
Of course, he's lying. It was helping two students 17 years ago to help them, buy their own homes. They didn't pay the bills, and it got her paid, and it has never been an issue in any of the campaign before. It was all about nonprofit.
When John Fetterman brings up houses, the irony is he didn't pay for his own house. He got it for $1 from his sister.
That's like he got his Pennsylvania house from his own inlays from $1.
Mr. Fetterman, we have to continue.
If Fetterman can't defend himself, how is he going to defend the people of
I'm gonna pause it right there, because those are some of the most incoherent sentences I have ever heard. And especially to be on a debate stage, it's absolutely absurd. I cannot believe that this guy is even there. I would have expected for the Democrat voters to have selected a different candidate, one that can hold their own. And perhaps, and I don't really quite remember when the primaries were for Pennsylvania, but I think they were after he had his stroke. I could be mistaken, I'm not sure. Or it could be that the Democrats just pumped a whole lot of money into this yes man that they got here. And that's who they thought they were going to, weekend that Bernie's him over the finish line, right? I don't know, but let's keep on watching here.
All politicians flip-flop from time to time, but most of them come up with a reason why they changed their position. Not Fetterman. Fetterman just lies.
I've always supported fracking, and I always believe that independence with our energy is critical.
But there is that 2018 interview that you said, quote, I don't support fracking at all. So how do you square the two?
I do support fracking, and I support fracking, and I stand and I do support fracking.
Fetterman is the worst type of politician, the kind that lying comes easy to.
Fracking. Yeah, fracking. No, I don't support fracking at all, and I never have.
I don't support fracking. I think it's something that has to eventually go away.
So last night was the worst debate performance in American political history, and it wasn't even close. A snap.
So I'm going to pause it right there again. You know, it's pretty interesting to see the flip-flop. Sports fracking, doesn't support fracking. And I have to disagree with Jesse here because he says most politicians give an explanation of their flip-flops. No, they don't. I haven't heard it from any prominent leftist as to why. Maybe there are some out there, but I haven't heard it. We can see that with Hillary Clinton's a good example of that, how she flip-flopped on gay marriages, right? I think we can see how the entire Democratic Party flip-flopped on illegal immigration. We can see how Joe Biden flip-flopped on abortion, on how he said it should be rare on certain occasions, or it should be rare, right? And this was back in the 90s, and now it's full-blown. So no, I'm sorry. They don't explain. They don't explain their flip-flop. This is just typical stuff from the Democratic Party, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying that Republicans don't do that or haven't done that in the past. There very well could be. I don't know. But I'm going to tell you what, I haven't seen it since I've been paying attention to politics. That's just me personally. But let's go ahead and continue with this.
History, and it wasn't even close. A Snap poll showed 83% of Pennsylvania voters thought Dr. Oz won. It was so bad, CNN called it a scandal.
I mean, I thought somebody should have invoked the mercy rule about 20 minutes into the debate.
What we saw today was someone who is not ready to be in office. Like, I found it extremely hard to watch.
I thought this was the unraveling of one of the biggest scandals going on in this midterm cycle. The covering up and the lying about the status of John Fetterman.
But like a typical liberal, Fetterman's campaign blames somebody else for his bad night. Team Fetterman is blaming closed captioning errors that they said were slow and riddled with misspellings. Remember, Fetterman can't process speech, so they actually gave him closed captioning to read what the moderators and Oz were saying. Here's an example of how it worked.
The second screen will caption the questions and responses from them at Oz. We have live, experienced captioners in studio to ensure we are as accurate.
So I'm going to pause it right there again. So pretty interesting that they had these guests on CNN, and the things that they said were absolutely true. And again, the point here that I want to emphasize on is the fact that how these people have lied to the media, to the voters, how the media has lied to the voter, how they covered it all up, right? And they're gonna throw blame. They're gonna throw the blame game. They're gonna say, oh, it was the people that are working with him, right? His administration, his family, and so on and so forth. His doctor, so on and so forth. They're gonna play the blame game. But we know that these people, the leftist media, they love to focus in on their guy. They love to cover up for him. As a matter of fact, Jesse's going to get into this. There was a reporter just a couple of weeks ago that interviewed him and said she actually did her job, her journalistic job, and said how he had trouble responding to her questions and the carrying the conversation and so on and so forth. That lady got grilled by many of the left, by many on the leftist media. She got grilled, and what they did was they came out and defended Fetterman, how they interviewed him and they didn't have that type of experience and so on and so forth. And then obviously after this aired, we can see that lady was actually correct, that reporter, and Jesse is going to talk on that. But I just want to keep that in mind, how these people were all shocked and surprised, yes, and they actually did good commentating there to say that this guy is not fit to serve. So let's keep watching.
Possible.
So the closed captioning company and the network put out a statement saying everything worked perfectly and that Fetterman was given the option to practice with it and chose not to. It became clear during the debate early on that Fetterman wasn't well. And the moderator asked him respectfully when he'd be releasing his medical records.
I believe if my doctor believes that I'm fit to serve, and that's what I believe is appropriate, and I believe that, again, my doctors, the real doctors that I believe in, they all believe that I'm ready to be served.
Follow up, I didn't hear you say you would release your full medical records. Why not? You have 30 seconds.
No, again, my doctor all believes that I'm fit to be serving, and that's what I believe is where I'm standing.
Fetterman's doctor is a big-time Democrat donor, and he and John won't release the records. Nearly every sane person who watched that debate felt sorry for John Fetterman and felt sorry for the voters of Pennsylvania who've been deceived about his condition. Except, of course, the ladies of The View.
It was really strange to me that he chose to bully a stroke victim. Yeah, right. Like, he obviously was bullying him, and I don't think the people of Pennsylvania or the people in general like.
So what was he not supposed to do? I don't know what to ask at this point because it's so blatantly obvious. First of all, like I said with Joe Biden, I don't feel sorry for them, either one of them. I feel sorry that they're going through that issue, right? That he had a stroke. That's not a thing to laugh at, right? But I don't feel bad for him in the sense of what's going on right now because he chose to. If you got into a position and you had an issue, like God forbid right now, if I get into something happens, a stroke, a heart attack, and I'm not able to do my job, I'm gonna say it. I don't feel good enough to do my job, right? As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that if this guy had a regular 9-to-5 job and he had a stroke, he'd be in retirement right now. He'd be disabled. He would apply for permanent disability and get whatever benefits he can get off of that system. But because this is politics and powers in play here, we're talking about a seat on the Senate. Well, we can't have that. No, I'm fit to go, right? And we've got the usual backing from the Democratic Party. Again, I don't feel sorry for him. I don't, because he's chosen and agreed to go forward with this. So he has to reap whatever he sows. Now, for the fact of The View and the hateful ladies and the morons on The View, what was Dr. Oz supposed to do? Not debate him? What was Dr. Oz supposed to do? What were the moderators not supposed to do? So you can't, you're literally in a job interview, let's say, right? Because that's essentially what it is. You're speaking about what you're going to do for your constituents. What are you supposed to do? Not push back because the guy has some type of an issue? Well, maybe that guy who has the issue shouldn't be there. How about that one? But
Pennsylvania or the people in general liked that.
Dr. Oz was the perfect gentleman during that debate. Never even brought up Fetterman's health once. He stuck to the issues the entire hour. How was that bullying? Oz let his opponent use a translation machine. He didn't have to do that. Personally, I feel bad for Fetterman. He can't function at a level required to serve in the United States Senate. And according to physicians I've talked to, 6 months after a stroke, this is probably the best John Fetterman's ever going to get. And the fact that the Democratic Party hid this from the voters of Pennsylvania and continued to foist Fetterman on him when it's clear he can't listen and communicate effectively is one of the most disrespectful things I've seen in a long time. It's disrespectful to John Fetterman, and it's disrespectful to the people. And it's disrespectful to the members of the media that ask legitimate questions about the candidate's health. NBC reporter Dasha Burns, remember, was viciously attacked by Democrats and other reporters for saying Fetterman had a hard time making small talk. After seeing the debate last night, everybody knows she was right, and they owe her an apology. Barack Obama and Joe Biden are going to Pennsylvania together for the first time 3 days before the election to campaign on stage with John Fetterman. Obama and Biden are preying on poor John. He's a wounded animal who should be in therapy. And the president and the former president are trying to drag this guy into the Senate, where he's at a high risk of having a follow-up stroke, who won't be able to perform at hearings, who won't be able to hear reporters, who won't be able to hash out policy on the Senate floor. John Fetterman could perform under pressure in a debate for an hour. That level of intensity is Washington, D.C. every single day. But Democrats are taking advantage of Fetterman. He's vulnerable. He's a man-child. And it's unseemly for Democratic leaders to be pushing an unfit man who needs to be hooked up to machines into the most important legislative body in this country. It's not in John's best interests, but the Democrats don't care. They only care about what's in their best interest. They only care about having a yes man that Schumer can control.
So great clip there by Jesse Waters. Really lays out everything, and that's exactly, and he's right, spot on with everything that he said. And like I said, the ability for these people to want to hold on to political power is absolutely disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting that Barack Obama and Joe Biden are going to go and help this guy and campaign for him. Again, they're going to Weekend at Bernie's him over the finish line. Meaning, if you guys don't know what that is, and I'm sure most of you guys know, it's a movie called Weekend at Bernie's where the boss of these two guys dies while they're over at his house for the weekend. And so in order to not ruin their vacation, if you will, they keep the illusion that he's alive. So they tie him up with their sneaker so that he can walk and arm to arm. And they set up all these rigs so he can they can make him move, and it makes it look like he's alive. That's kind of what they're doing, right? They're metaphorically doing that with this guy, John Fetterman, for Obama and Biden after that performance. Because if that performance doesn't happen, if that debate doesn't take place the way that it does, it is what it is. That's their guy. I get it. But after seeing that, how can anybody say, you know what, I want to vote for that guy? Then again, we had Joe Biden talking about hairy legs and roaches and in the sun and so on and so forth, and people still voted for him. So I don't know. I don't know what twilight world we're living in nowadays, but it's definitely not normal. But guys, that's the end of our show. Again, I want to stress the importance of the midterms. Please, guys, go out there, vote in person. Don't do it by mail. Why? Because funny things can happen. I'm not saying that they will happen, but they could potentially happen. It's just better to be safer than sorry. Get out there, vote. Let's make pretend like we are behind, and we need to come back and surge. Right? Don't take it for granted that the polls are showing that we're in the lead, or that we're close, or that a red wave is coming. Listen, let's make sure that we hammer it through. Let's send a clear message to everyone here, including the Republicans. I want to make this very clear. The Republicans, should they take back the House and the Senate, they need to step up. And if not, we're going to hold them accountable. And if not, I'm going to put them on blast. I'm going to use this channel to put them on blast, because no one should be lying to us. None of them. Not the Democrats, not the independents, not the Republicans. We need to demand higher from our political leaders. We're tired of the BS. We're tired of being lied to. We're tired of them having political power while we struggle. It's enough. So let's send a message to the Democrats. We're tired of it. And let's also send a message to the Republicans and letting them know, hey, we're going to hold you guys accountable. If you're not down with the Make America First movement, and that's irrelevant of Donald Trump. That should be everybody's viewpoint, is making America great, putting America first. America needs to be prosperous. America needs to be number one. If that's not your goal, if that's not your view, you shouldn't even be running. Step down, let somebody else go who does have that view. Guys, until the next one, peace out, take care. God bless our country. God bless America. God bless you guys, and God bless Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis and all of the people like Harry Lake that are really fighting for this country. They need our support.